We now have the pleasure of being joined by CBS's and Yes Network's Ian Eagle. Ian, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, great to be on with you guys. I feel like I'm the kid that's missing all the great stuff at school that week. I'm home with chicken pox. I don't have chicken pox. Eventually, I will be in Vegas, but it just feels like it's been a really vibrant time. So excited you guys have been a part of it.
Ian, you talked a little bit about Vegas. I want to start there. We've heard a lot of people say that if they heard that the Super Bowl was going to be held in Las Vegas, they would have called you crazy 5 to 10 years ago. What are your thoughts on Las Vegas being a host city for the biggest game in the country of the year?
Yeah, what we've seen is Vegas has become a destination for the Super Bowl, even when they don't have the game, just based on all of the ancillary options for people to go there to bet on the game and then to enjoy 3 or 4 days of the lead up. The fact that the game is there is completely mind-blowing. You're combining these two worlds. The NFL, I've covered a bunch of Super Bowls. They come in and they take over towns. They are in charge in many ways. And in Las Vegas, I'm curious to see how that blends, because you have people that are locked in and they're there for the game. And then there are a bunch of people that are there for everything else. And then the game might be secondary. So they've hosted big sporting events. Things have definitely changed. There's been a blurring of the lines now over the last 5 years or so. And we continue to evolve very much in this society in regards to sports and gambling and then entertainment and pop culture. Everything is in one cauldron and you just mix it up.
Do you have any concerns for the future of legalization of sports gambling and then this having the world's largest sporting event in Las Vegas now?
Yeah, I think the narratives have certainly changed. When I started at CBS, it was 1998, and on a national broadcast, you would never even consider the possibility of bringing up something gambling related. That had been relayed to you by your network, by the NFL, for other leagues as well. It was considered taboo. And slowly we saw things begin to loosen, and a lot of it becomes almost personal. I'm not a gambler. I think the last time I bet on a game was freshman year of college at Syracuse, and I lost $20 on a Monday Night Football game, and it felt like the end of the world for me in 1986. So fast forward, I didn't like that feeling. I determined that I worked too hard in order to throw my money away on something that I had no control over. So on a personal level, I never got into it, but I recognize that there is a faction of the sports viewing public that this is the basis in which they follow sports. So you have to respect the fact that there are people out there that live in this world on a daily basis, sometimes on an hourly and minute by minute basis. And as a broadcaster, you have to pick and choose what you're aware of, what you're cognizant of. I haven't made huge changes in how I approach things. Maybe I'm a little bit more aware of a betting line here or there. I'm definitely doing more reads than I've ever done before on sporting events that literally tell you the line up to the minute. So that part has changed. But as far as I prepare and as far as my coverage, not much has changed, at least in my world.
Ian, this season you called games with Charles Davis, Evan Washburn on the sideline. What was it like to work with the two of them?
Oh, great. Very collaborative. I think oftentimes what you get on the air is an extension of what you have off the air. It doesn't mean that you're always going to be the best of friends, although the three of us are very close. There has to be some camaraderie. There has to be trust between the three of you. With Evan, we feel very confident whenever we throw to him that he's going to add to the broadcast. Charles and I have a very conversational approach in what we do. We don't talk a lot prior to the game about specifically how we're going to do it. We try to keep it organic. We're both very prepared. We both do it in our personal way, and the two styles have meshed together quite nicely. And Charles and I are doing the world feed for the Super Bowl. So I don't know if you guys are planning on a trip to the Philippines, but if you are, this would be a good time because then you would hear our broadcast. Evan will be on the CBS broadcast alongside Tracy Wolfson working the sideline. And then I'll also be doing pregame stuff for CBS with Charles, Matt Ryan, Jason McCourty. We'll have a secondary set in addition to James Brown and the crew. So it's fun. It's going to be action packed for me. I'm packing a lot into a short period of time, and then I fly off and I've got NBA games in Phoenix and Memphis, a college game in Houston. So when I leave here, it's a 10-day trip, and it's all about compartmentalizing and just turning the page. Do your event, move on to the next one, get rid of the information, bring in the next batch of information.
Well, the Philippines are now our next destination. But is there one person that you've worked with over the years that really stood out to you as, wow, this is a really great sense of chemistry between you guys?
Oh, sure. Many of them, to be perfectly frank, because I really do make it my business to try to find commonality and find some sense of togetherness and teamwork. But Bill Raftery on the basketball side, I've just done so many games with him. He's become a very close friend beyond just a broadcaster. He was my first true partner on television when I got the Nets job in 1995. I had done 1 year of radio. I got moved up to TV. I don't know, thinking back on it, if I was really ready for that, but because I had Raf next to me, it made the transition very smooth. His style, his approach, a lot of light moments and levity, but sneaky good on analysis and preparation. And that's how I view my job, to keep it moving and to try to blend a little bit of what you're seeing out there on the court or on the field, and then maybe some of the backstory so you can provide some context. Dan Fouts, I worked with for 10 years, NFL on CBS, and we just hit it off, just had very similar senses of humor and approach to the job. Probably didn't take ourselves that seriously, but we took the subject matter very seriously, and off the air really bonded on a personal level. There are many more. I don't want to leave people off. I think I'm up to, I've kept a running list. I've got to check the number, but I think I'm up to 138 different partners over the course of my career. So you could look at that one of two ways. Either the first way, which is, wow, he can work with so many different people, the versatility, the malleability, or why can't he keep a steady partner? What is wrong with him? So hopefully it's the former, not the latter.
And I want to talk about this game in particular, the Super Bowl, but also not about the game. Taylor Swift has become such a big story with Travis Kelce. You were the first to have a Taylor Swift reference in a game, and you have an incredible ability to include pop culture into calls and keep the relationship between the two interchangeable. What was the thought process behind including that in your Travis Kelce touchdown call, and how do you continue to include pop culture references in your calls?
It was early in the season, as we know, and it was Kansas City at Jacksonville. At that point, there were just rumors that Kelce and Taylor Swift had gotten together, nothing concrete, but there was enough out there in my mind that it piqued people's interest. I went into the game thinking, okay, if Kelce does something, if the situation calls for it, maybe I can get a reference in there. I truly did not script it out. I didn't think about specifically what I would say or how I would say it. I just knew that if the moment was right, go for it. I've learned in my career after all these years to trust my instincts, and certainly in those moments where you're trying to include something that's not necessarily normal for a football broadcast, you better do it right, and you better not draw too much attention to yourself because it's not about you. So in that particular moment, it just seemed to work. It seemed to fit. He found a blank space in the end zone, and away we go. You know, the truck reacted. I got a couple of, oh, that was nice from producer or associate director Charles Davis, who's a huge Swiftie and had gone to the concert in LA, gives me a high five and kind of a wink. Hey, good job on that. And then that was it. You know, I got some texts here and there. The phone started blowing up a little bit. I then got to the airport in Jacksonville, and then it went to the next level. TMZ went for it. You know, not a bad day when you can appear on TMZ and not break the law. That's the way I viewed it, that it was all working out in my favor. So ultimately, it got a lot more attention than I ever anticipated. You know, my sister, who does not watch sports, is now sending me links, and I'm getting reach outs from people that I had not spoken to in many, many years, all based on this one line in this one moment. And it just shows you the power of this current world that we're in, where something can go viral and it's not really on purpose. I thought it was a throwaway line. I thought I might get a reaction from my crew, and then that's it. And it certainly had a shelf life of a couple of days. And then as their relationship did ratchet up, it became the starting point in many ways, where the sports world acknowledged that this was real and this was happening.
What are your thoughts on Taylor Swift's influence on the big game, and what it's gotten to now?
I think it's great. I see no downside whatsoever. I understand there are some out there that question why they get a reaction shot or why she would be a topic of conversation. She's the biggest pop star in the world right now. That's why. That's the obvious part. And then the second part is, if you really took a clock to how often she's on television during the game, it's pretty minuscule. There are many reaction shots over the course of a broadcast. There's no Taylor cam right now where you can watch her all the time. It's been well timed in my mind and used correctly by CBS and other networks, NBC, Fox, ABC, ESPN. Look, when you have someone of that stature that is at the event, I just know from doing local games with the Nets, there's a celebrity in the arena, we show them. Do we lock in on them for 5 minutes? Do we talk about them over and over? We don't. It's a mention, and then you might get a reaction shot. I had a game years ago where Jerry Seinfeld was at the Net game, and we showed him, established him early. That was it. And then the Nets won on a buzzer beater, and they got a reaction shot from Jerry Seinfeld, not expecting it. I certainly didn't anticipate it. And I had a line for the moment that the shot was real and spectacular. And for someone that's a Seinfeld fan, that rings true and resonates. For someone that isn't, it's not that big a deal. And that's what we went with, because it fit the moment. So in my mind, I'm always trying to talk to pictures. I'm trying to enhance or complement what's on the screen. So if something makes sense in the moment, I tend to trust my instincts at that moment.
You said you had so many partners earlier, but you do the Nets, you do college basketball, you do football all year. How do you juggle all those different games and teams at once?
Drugs, a lot of drugs. No, it's truly as simple as, you better get quality sleep if you're going to do this and do this well. And you've got to be highly organized. I've been doing it for a long time now, so I have a sense year to year what my calendar is going to look like, but you still have to actually go out and do it and take the red eye and turn around and do a game off the red eye and hope that the person that you're sleeping next to literally on the red eye does not keep you up for the length of the flight, because you need to get a couple hours of sleep. And then when you get home, get a nap in and try to be healthy and try to understand that with each event, it's a separate entity. If I look at the big picture of what I'm doing, that's where I could lose myself and get swept away in the enormity of the schedule. If I break it down to individual event with different people, by the way, it's not the same partner, it's not the same production crew, it's not the same network. So you have to be very much aware of your surroundings. And then the other part, at least in my mind, what I've tried to be through the years, I don't talk about the job that I just did with the group that I'm working with on the next job. They don't care, nor should they. So if I'm working a Westwood One radio game, I don't go to my CBS game talking about the Westwood experience, and I don't go to my Yes Network game talking about the CBS game. I don't go to the Turner game locked in on my travel issues from the Yes game. They're all separate. And for the crew, it's the most important game they're doing that week. So you have to be keenly aware of where you are, who you're working with, and read the room, which is a pretty good phrase in life in general. Just be completely aware of what's happening around you.
One of the storylines that I'm looking forward to working on, and Ben and I are going to do a package on this later in the week, is the father-son duo between Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, and then also Ed McCaffrey and Christian McCaffrey. What are your thoughts on how significant these two father-son duos are?
It's pretty incredible when you think of it. Let's start on the Shanahan side. Look, I'm older now. I do recognize that. And because of that, I have a unique perspective on this particular storyline. I remember covering Mike Shanahan, going into Denver, working a production meeting with him, being impressed with him and his football mind and his approach. And now all these years later, walking into a production meeting with Kyle Shanahan and being blown away by his honesty and his attention to detail and his direct nature. So it's pretty easy to see that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He's taken on many of the aspects that Mike brought, but Kyle is an updated version and recognizing that you may have to deal with players a little differently. And because of social media, you have to be very much on top of what's happening in all facets of your organization, not just the football side. So Kyle's been a complete dream to work with when I've had the 49ers. I had them late in the season against the Arizona Cardinals, and their team is very impressive on a number of levels, not just on the football field, but how they carry themselves. Production meeting, Brock Purdy, through the roof. I was blown away. For a young guy to handle himself the way that he does, you could see why he's got command of his team. And Fred Warner and Christian McCaffrey, which leads now to the second part of the storyline. Again, not to date myself, but covered Ed McCaffrey, talked to Ed McCaffrey in production meetings, actually covered Ed's brother as a senior in college. Syracuse played in the first ever Big East ACC Classic against Duke in Greensboro, North Carolina. I went down there, I did the game, and one of the players for Duke was Billy McCaffrey, who eventually transferred to Vanderbilt. So all of these things are percolating in your head. All these names pop up from your past. Ed was a terrific guy, not a shock. Christian is a terrific guy, easy to root for, completely dedicated to his craft and being the best at who he is and what he can be for his team. And, part of that unique insight is being around it. And those two were around it their whole lives. They saw it, they experienced it, they lived it. Some children of professional athletes don't have the talent or the ability to get to that level, but they do have the experience. And on the coaching side, Kyle certainly grabbed onto a lot of what Mike did to be successful as a two-time Super Bowl champion as the head coach of the Broncos.
So I want to transition over to Syracuse, from your post-Syracuse life to your Syracuse life. We've asked all our Syracuse alums that we've talked to this question in terms of your favorite memory at Syracuse, AER related, not AER related, if there's a particular story. And, we're both over 21. So if you have a particular strategy on Wednesday nights for flip night at Fagan's, we want to know. We want to learn.
Yeah, I think, first of all, the statute of limitations are up. So I can tell you that there was a particular strategy in fake IDs. I had two of them. It was not my picture on the fake ID. It was somebody else, but I looked close enough to them in order to get into the establishments that I wanted to get into freshman year, sophomore year, junior year. I didn't turn 21 until second semester, senior year.
Wow.
So just the way that the calendar fell, Fagan's was not a huge destination for me because that was the one place that actually cracked down and would ask you questions about your ID. And I was concerned they were going to take my ID away from them. So for me, it was a lot of, at the time, a place called Bragg's, Harry's, 44s came by later, Chuck's. Those were the stomping grounds. And then Fagan's, I didn't really get into until second semester, senior year. So I tried to make up for lost time. I do not have a strategy for you on flip night. I was not successful at it, and I think I have PTSD still to this day from struggling and failing at Fagan's. So many great memories on a personal level. Met my wife there. Both my kids went there, so you can imagine we have a lot of strong feelings in regard to Syracuse. Met my wife freshman year at Flint. And somehow that relationship stood the test of time at Syracuse. Broke up a couple of times. It wasn't smooth sailing the whole way. Not during the marriage, during the original relationship. Yeah. I wanted to just make sure we were on the same page there.
We got it.
Yeah, and then from a school standpoint, just a lot of pride. There's so much pride, I think, with Syracuse alums, and that continues into your 30s and 40s. And now for me, into my 50s. I try to tell young people when they're trying to figure out what school to go to, I have them do this exercise, which is you have to say out loud the name of the school, because for the rest of your life, people will ask you, hey, where'd you go to college? Doesn't matter how old you are. You're still associated in some way with that school. So you have to be okay saying the name, and there can't be a caveat at the end of it. So you can't say, oh, I went to X, but it was because of that. Like, no, nobody wants to hear that part of it. You got to be okay with it. And with Syracuse, I just felt okay. I remember visiting senior year of high school, and it just felt right. Obviously, the broadcasting side appealed to me, and similar to you two, the fact that you could be around people that had a real interest and passion for it. You pushed one another. The standard was very high, and I'm sure you feel the same way that I do, because I felt this way when I graduated in 1990. I wanted to leave there feeling as if I made the people before me proud in some way, and left it in a good place so that those that followed had someone to look up to. And that's how it should be. And I think that's been a recurring theme for Syracuse, and why the school continues to churn out such outstanding broadcasters.
I certainly agree with that. I feel that way. You
Yeah,
feel?
totally.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time with us. We really appreciate it before Super Bowl Sunday.
Guys, have a blast. It's a tremendous opportunity. I'm thrilled to be on with you. I wish I was there with you. I'll be there later in the week, and enjoy every bit of it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Safe travels.
Thanks.